You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
He's arrived back in one piece. The great Wayne Carey, who has just come in from Bangkok. I don't know if Jeff Fennick's still over there. God knows what they did over there after we did this last week on the, this time last week, and what they did in the last 6 days, anyone's business. So welcome back, Wayne.
Thanks, Sam. How did it come up, by the way? Because we were shoved in the back of a restaurant, nice restaurant, but shoved up in the back corner, and the music came on, and Jeff had ordered a drink. I think it was, when I say a drink, it was a Coca-Cola or something like that along those lines, and it come a little bit late, and he was
a bit pesky.
There was a little bit of that,
bit jumpy.
But we were a little bit worried that it didn't come through.
Came through great.
Good.
Very good. And we snatched just 5 minutes with him, and then he got a bit restless and had to go.
Well, I just figured I'd sort of tried to shuffle him off, to be honest. I thought he'd delivered what he was going to deliver. But I tell you what I do know over there is he's like royalty over there. Is he? The great Jeff Fennick. He walks around. He knows everyone. He knows the watch people. The ones that sell the fake watches. And the clothes makers. And I think he's got his fingers in a lot of pies.
He had a bit of trouble with watches some years ago.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you know that.
I didn't know that.
That's well documented.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think he tried to relieve a watch store of some watches, and.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
okay.
That's well documented.
Oh, well, that's all right. Well,
that's just a couple of lads being lads in a watch store.
Well, a couple of guys that were over there that were mates of mine actually from Perth that flew over, who have, the real watch is worth, quite a bit of money, and over there, as you know, you can buy fakes.
Yep.
What I didn't know, Sam, I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, is there's such thing as good fakes and there's bad fakes.
Yeah, there is.
Now, what I can't work out is why you would pay. Now, think about this. Why would you pay, and this is the topic we're talking about at different stages over there, over $1,000 for a fake?
I'll tell you why.
A good fake.
I'll tell you why.
Why?
So I was at a 50th birthday party, big bash in the city. The beautiful people were there, the A-listers, and a friend of mine who collects Rolex watches. And Rolexes go...
Real ones.
Real Rolexes.
Yeah.
And they go from 60 grand to 100,000 to... and
they're like property now.
And he had one of his very expensive Rolexes on, and he said... I only put this on when I got out of the car and put it on my wrist to go to the function. He said, because the great risk is that people now people will, with a machete, will cut your wrist off and take the watch, or they'll bail you up. So he said, I have some fake watches, and if I go out somewhere, and I would spend a lot of money on a fake watch because...
a really good fake, so it looks
really
real.
Good fake because it looks really real.
Well, how would the guy chopping your arm off know that it's a fake?
Because he wouldn't. But
that's right. So your arm's still going to get chopped off, then, isn't it?
Well, but if someone. That's a bit extreme. But this is what happens over in. No, this is what happens over in Africa.
I know. I've
that's
travelled
right.
over there.
But here they would bail you up and they would manhandle you.
Get your watch off,
and then take your watch off you. And they get it home and they think I've pinched a Rolex and it's just a fake.
So that's why.
So that's why they do it.
What if someone came up knowing that he has real Rolexes, and this is my dilemma, and this is what we discussed, that if you had the really good fake one, and most people know that you have the real ones, and you have, let's call him an acquaintance, not a good friend, but an acquaintance came up and said, I love you. I absolutely love that Rolex you've got on.
Yeah.
Do you admit that it's a fake, or do you tell him that it's real? Or do you think you don't have to say a thing? You just go, thank you.
Yes, that's exactly what.
So by saying thank you, you're admitting that it's a real Rolex.
No, but you wouldn't tell someone if you got a Tiffany bracelet on, and you can get fake Tiffany bracelets and rings, and if someone says, "Gee, I love your ring," where'd you, and they say they can see it's Tiffany.
Might get in trouble if you say that.
You just say no. You just say thank you.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, "Oh no, this is the real one," in case you think that's like buying the fake Nike shoes over in Vietnam and that. You can buy 12 pairs for $100, and they look exactly the same.
Which is my point. I feel compelled. I would feel compelled for whatever reason, which is why I don't buy fake stuff. And I just feel compelled. If someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I love your runners," I would say, "You know what? I'm glad you like them because they're actually really cheap. They're fake, and I got them from such and such." Or if same about the watch or a necklace or whatever it may be.
You're an amazing man, Wayne. Why, if someone came up and said, "I like your runners," why wouldn't you just say thanks? Why would you have to explain if they're fake or not?
Because, you know what? Because I would know that they were fake.
Yes.
I know they're fake.
Yes.
So I feel...
But you're not deceiving anyone. They're just saying, "Gee, I like your runners," and you say, "Thanks."
Yeah, we can say thanks, but they're fake.
Why would you say that? Why would you bother?
You know what? That's why I love doing this show.
Extraordinary man,
we are very different. But so he is. So Jeff, knew everyone at the watch shop, and my mate, who, like I said, has the real deal, and they bought a couple of the good fakes. I just figured if you're going to get a fake, just get the one off the street that's going to cost you about $20 rather than $1,300.
Well, no, that's fair enough.
You might have to get 4 or 5 of those.
Plenty of people do that, and plenty of people buy their collector's items, buy the Rolexes, and they put them in a safe.
Yeah.
And they just don't even, they're just collector's items.
Going up.
Like you can buy those, what are the bags called, Suzanne?
Yeah, Louis Vuitton and all of those brands.
They cost 60, 70, 80, 100 grand handbags. They're collector's items, and you would never take them out. You'd just put them in a safe, and you'd buy the fake ones, and you'd take and someone would say, what are they called? Birkenstein. Birkenstein. You look up Jeff Fennick and look up Birkenstein. Birkenstock. They cost $200,000 handbags. And people say, and then they buy the fake ones because how easy would it be to pinch someone's handbag?
I'm
Birkenstock, please, Sue.
I know
look
a lot of
Birkenstock.
No, there's a lot of
I'm more interested, Wayne.
People that I know that have, just like you said, they have a bit of both because if they have a bit of both, they're never going to be questioned whether one's real or not.
Unless someone asks you and you say, "Oh no, they're fake." No, shit, no, sorry about that.
Anyway, it's just
I'm staggered that you had someone and say, "I like your shoes," and you say, "Now look, just let me tell you about these shoes. These are fake. I got them in Vietnam and I paid $12 for them." I say, "Oh well, they're not that good anyhow." Then, but they still look the same. Why would you explain that to someone?
That's a good point. I wouldn't go into that depth. No, I would just say they're fake.
No.
So if you want a pair,
why would you say
go to
Why
Bangkok.
would you say they're fake?
I don't know.
You just say,
I don't know.
They'd say they're nice shoes, and you say thanks. Here we go. Birkin. What did you look that up? Birkin.
Birkin bag.
Yeah, Birkin.
Never heard of them.
Well, you can buy just the normal one for 13 grand. Some of them here, crocodile mat sold for not 545,000. That's not that what that says, is it?
Yeah. Okay.
$500,000 for a handbag.
Oh well, that's if it goes up in price and you hang on to it, then that's an investment. It's just like jewellery. You wouldn't walk in. Would you walk into a jeweller's, Sam, and buy a?
So they're 50 grand, 500 grand. I can't.
Would you walk in? Would you walk into a jeweller and buy a diamond ring for Sue or a diamond bracelet? At a jeweller.
No, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. You'd actually go to a specialist and you'd source your diamonds from somewhere else, and then you'd get it made up. And which by the way, I have a lady that I've used over a long period of time that does exactly that, and at least you know what you're getting rather than you just walking in and buying something.
So let me ask you this question: why would you buy?
I love also about this.
What?
How we got onto this, I don't know.
Oh,
We're
because
talking about watches in Bangkok.
You
I
said,
love it.
you said Jeff Fennick is the king and he'd bought a watch or something, didn't
No,
you?
I said he had a watch on that was
Yes.
fake, and I said, I love your watch.
Yeah, that's right.
And Jeff said, it's a fake. So he, just like I said I would say, he told
but
me
he
it was
would
a fake.
say that to you.
But then-
he wouldn't say if someone came up.
But then he said he knew the shop to go to, and he took my
Yeah,
friends
that's
there,
right.
and they all purchased a couple of fake watches each.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
you know, and then went to a clothing store and got some clothes made up, and
Yeah, no, I was going to say something about the fake watches and the. I the diamond. So here you are. Why would you, Wayne? Why would anyone buy a 100, a 50, a 20, a 30, a $50,000 diamond and give it to someone to put on their finger? Why would you do that?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Go
on.
I can tell you why people do it.
Yeah, why?
Well, it's a show of their love.
Well, so would you have to give someone a 50, spend half the money you've got in the bank for a diamond, whether it be a zircon or a real diamond, to show that you love them?
Well,
would you say?
Sam, I like your angle here, and I agree with you. But guess what? Society has taught us that the way you show love is to spoil someone with gifts, and diamonds is, in particular, probably the more traditional way to go.
Yeah, no, I
and
understand that.
even there's even a formula. Well, I don't know where the formula started, but they say you cut your monthly or your full monthly wage, and then another half of the next month. So a month and a half wage, and that's what you spend on the ring that you're going to get engaged.
If I'd spent,
surely you've spent some money on some time.
I was just going to say, if I'd spent a lot of money on the diamond rings I've given my wives, I'd be broke. And have you ever paid a lot of money for a diamond and given it to a woman or a man? Well, I'm just covering all bases. Yep.
I have.
Yes.
Have
you?
I have bought diamonds for my partners,
loved ones,
yes.
And are you still with those loved ones that you bought the diamonds for?
No,
One or two of them?
some of them
No.
aren't, but
So hang on.
We are still very good friends,
Yeah,
and
good.
you know what, I get a lot of gratitude out of when I still see Sally.
Yes.
When I still see
You gave her a
the mothers of
diamond?
my children, and
gave
when I see them, sometimes they're wearing the diamonds that I've actually bought them all that time ago,
And sometimes they're not if they're with other people, other men.
Well, I've seen them wearing them when they have been still, when they've moved on.
And the bloke says, "Who gave you the diamond?" He said, "Wayne gave it to me." He said, "Oh, well, gee, maybe you could take it off when you see me."
There we go.
And you're happy.
Some people aren't jealous like that, Sam. Some people are more than.
No, some people aren't.
No.
So you're more than happy to see the ex-girls that you've been out with or married or whatever walking
not
around
married.
with $50,000 or $60,000 worth of diamonds on their finger, eh? And you thought, gee, that was a pointless exercise giving them that. I should have bought them a car or something.
I would be lying if I didn't look at those rings at a particular time and joke pot. But no,
I just can't see the point of buying
is.
someone an expensive diamond to show that's what you think about them.
It's you know what, it's a valid point you make.
Mind you, I don't wear
we
any-
do it, and I've made it plenty of times, as I'm sure you have.
But what?
I'm sure you've made that mistake of buying expensive things for people. You don't when you buy
I've
these.
never bought expensive rings for people.
No, but when you buy these gifts for the person you love at that time, is you don't expect you're going to ever.
No, you don't expect that. No, you go into it thinking this is going to last.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get 5 years out of it, you've done well. Well, I have it here.
We could, you know what? We could literally talk about this topic with you for
Well,
forever
you
and
could.
a day. While I was away,
Yeah.
I know that you would have, we sort of briefly
Beg your pardon, Wayne?
touched on it, but the North Melbourne won the
Yes. women.
The women's
Yeah, and
grand
I
final.
covered that.
And
when
you did say, no, but we're here in person now, and you did say that you tuned in for half. And
I did.
I spoke to Croc.
Yes.
I rang him, spoke to him yesterday, actually. I rang him on I said, I haven't spoken to him, but congratulations. Yeah. And he was, you know what, to hear an ex-premiership teammate who's now the coach of the the first North Melbourne AFL women's team. He was chuffed. And
emotional?
Yeah. Oh, he didn't.
Did you say I was on the podcast with Sam and he said, why are men coaching women?
I will get when I catch up with him in person. You know what we should do? We should get him on this podcast. He would come on. Yeah. And for what it's worth, I've put out the feelers for our man John McEnroe.
I was just going to say, we'll get him on immediately after you get John McEnroe on.
So I've spoke to my man. He said he does obviously know John very well, not like he knows, the Federers and the Nadals and these guys, but he knows John. John will be here, he believes, obviously, for the Australian Open. And he said the best way about it is he will speak to him in person when he arrives here in Australia.
You tell him we have a very popular podcast. A lot of people listen to it. And from day one, it's got his voice on it.
Yes, correct. So we'll have to...
I've interviewed John McEnroe for the Herald Sun.
That is my goal.
Yep.
That is my goal, to get him on here.
So you haven't had to just before we get on to, haven't had to check with Tess about anything? You didn't get any stressful moments over there that she needed to...
You should know now, there's a bit of a routine, that I speak to Tess after this show today.
Do you?
So...
Must be about rings and buying diamonds.
So I'll be... so I can talk to her about Bangkok. I can talk to her about this show and then ask her whether it was a mistake about whether I bought those rings. Because I'm now realising, and watches, and should I own... I'm going to ask her, should I actually
confess, or should you actually fess up that you're wearing
whether
fakes?
They're fake? Oh, you know what? It'll all come up today.
Yeah, well, good. And I was just going to say something about Jesus. You lost my train of thought there about not Tess, about the watches, about something. Oh, my God. Oh, no, I know what I was going to say. So I don't know if you were on here with Jeff when I said this, but I did say, and why wouldn't the AFL have played the game under the roof at Marvel Stadium if it was sold out? And I said, Wayne said, were you listening to that, or did I do that after?
I said that.
No, I know you said that, but when you went off the line, I think I mentioned that to the other people that were here after you'd gone.
Yeah.
So I took on board what you said about that. Why wouldn't the AFL do that? The AFL, who, how hard would it be to run the competition? How do you reckon those two Beavis and Butthead are going?
Was there a bit of a...
No, they said absolutely. Why wouldn't they do that?
I agree.
So
maybe next year?
I notice Foxtel are $12 billion in debt, and they're about News Corp have them for sale. And a Ukrainian billionaire looks like he might buy it.
This is Foxtel, not Fox Footy.
Well,
which is, I know, they own
is
Fox
one
Footy.
And the same thing, Wayne.
Yes, I know. I think... sorry, Sam, keep going. One of the
Fox, under the umbrella of
Fox.
Fox. Yeah. So a Ukrainian billionaire might own Fox Footy and have to go and speak to Beavis and Butthead, that is Laura and Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane, about the rights. That'd be an interesting conversation, the Ukrainian man speaking to them, the AFL, about televising the rights.
Well, the one thing that I've noticed, Sam, and I'm sure you're across it given the amount of time you spent on TV, but what about the amount of people that are jumping ship from one station to the next? And you've got all of a sudden Channel 7, or used to be called Channel Rex.
Yeah.
And we love Rex. So Rex sent me a really nice message the other week, so I'll give him a quick shout out. But Channel Rex geez, they're all going back.
Yeah.
Some that have never been there.
And Eddie's company, Jam TV, is packaging up the
I saw
television.
Eddie's son is
Yes.
even going to Channel 7. Hutchie back to Channel 7.
Xander's going.
We've got
that's his son.
we've got everyone.
Now, what begs the question, Wayne? Why wouldn't they get the real special comments person, the king of special comments and the man who could reputedly be the best footballer that's ever played the game? Why wouldn't they single him out to go back? And
I've had my time, Sam, on TV and radio. And like you,
how old
I'm
are
more
you,
than happy.
Wayne?
Me?
Yeah. Well,
How old do you want me to know?
What year were you born in?
71.
So you're
53.
I was going to say you're 50, right?
Yeah.
So you reckon you've had it at 53, do you?
Absolutely.
I tell you what you can't. In that industry, you'd be joking, wouldn't you? Mate, I've forgotten more about football than anyone speaking about it's ever known about it.
And I agree with you, Sam. But do you actually really enjoy? Now you lived in an era. And let's be honest, when I think back, you wouldn't remember, but I was one of the originals on the footy show.
Yeah, I do, right?
And what was great about that footy show is it was a different time, it was a different world. Imagine you working in TV today, you would absolutely hate it.
And I wouldn't.
You wouldn't do it. Exactly.
I wouldn't.
So
because I'm 80.
Yeah, no, not because it's not.
No,
it's nothing to do with age.
Because it's bullshit.
It's because you're muzzled and you can't say what you really want to say anyway.
That's right.
And it's contrived, and it's people get told what they have to say and what they can say, and you know the script. So for that reason,
you wouldn't do it for that reason.
No, well, I wouldn't do it because
mate, you cannot.
I wouldn't do it because one, I wouldn't be offered to do it, and two, and secondly, why wouldn't you be offered to do it? I sit very comfortably now in what I do outside of the game. I've now, like I said, the opportunity to be able to go and do things. And I know I don't like. I'm not a big hypothetical man.
Aren't you?
No.
Well, then I can't ask you your opinion.
Well, you can a lot, but just
I'm
with things like that, because I'll tell you why I'm not liking this hypothetical.
Why?
Because you're just going to get the same answer.
I was going to say, one thing you can't buy is experience. You have to put the years in to be experienced to analyse a game, and no one likes to have their credibility insulted by having young people tell you how the game should be played, what people should have been done, because they haven't been there long enough to know their credibility is not there.
Well, let's get into that then. I think that's a better topic. Why don't you tell me the ones that shouldn't be there?
We're doing broadcasting.
You tell me the ones that shouldn't be calling. Tell me the special comments people. Tell me the ones that shouldn't be doing that. Off the top of your head, surely you've got a couple that you think are not capable of doing the job.
No, I haven't, because, as you said, the parameters are completely different and then muzzled. Now, I'll tell you, so Dermot Brereton, right? I know Dermot very well. And I said, are you doing the football again next year? And he said, I am. He said, it's getting a little harder, he said, because the guidelines about what you should say and what you should comment on are being a little tighter, getting tightened up every year. And so he follows the paradigm, which is the pattern.
Yes,
paradigm.
I know what it is.
You know what paradigm is?
Yes.
He follows the guidelines, as opposed to me, who didn't follow them at all, and consequently I'm not doing it anymore. What you did was within the parameter at that particular time. Yeah, no, I talked myself down, Wayne. I'll tell you how I lost my job.
Do that. You along with Ed. And I'm happy to say, Trevor Marmalade, the three of you are the reasons why a lot of people today make a very good living out of the media.
On this very podcast, this is how I lost my job at Nine. On this very podcast, which had nothing to do with Nine or football, I said George Floyd, if you will remember, he was killed or choked by a copper. and he died. And the Black Lives Matter people burnt America to the ground for 2 years. And I said on this, I said, it's unfortunate how he died, but he was a piece of shit. Which he was. He had a rap sheet as long as your arm, and I said he was a piece of shit. People thought that was unsavoury to say that, and that was racist because he was black. And I said, not at all. I said, Jeffrey Epstein's a piece of shit, so's Harvey Weinstein is a piece of shit. They're white people. If you're a piece of shit, in my opinion, you're a piece of shit.
So we're getting on to why you got, that's why you got the sack.
Yeah. And they said, well, you can't say that.
I would argue, Sam, that like I said, well, not argue, it's fact, and that is that because of the way you are, and your truth and how you speak, that's why you wouldn't live in this world now in the media, and
but
you know
I wouldn't
that.
say that on the television. I wouldn't have said that.
Back to Dermot,
yes.
Dermy and others. See, I love Dermy.
Yes.
I love the way he talks
Very
about
good
the game.
man.
I think he's articulate. He sees things that others don't.
A little verbose, a little loquacious, a little talkative.
Yes,
but
he gets the game. He sees things
does.
that others don't. He doesn't just
like you did, Wayne.
Doesn't talk the obvious.
Like you did, Wayne.
Doesn't watch the game and talk about what everyone else has just seen on the screen. Which is what I love about Dermy, and there's lots I love in the media today. There's some that I don't, and the reason why I just wanted you to bring up a couple that you didn't, rather than one that you do.
Well, it is unfair to.
It's a bit okay. I'll go another step, and then you have those in the media. So let's not just talk football. Let's talk media. Full stop. And then you have those that create reputations off scuttlebutt and half the time, as we've said numerous times, but then they know what is annoying. It's like you see a great player. This is my bugbear. You see a great player do something great on the football field, and it gets talked up unbelievably. They've just done something unbelievable. Then you just get some kid that does the exact same thing 5 minutes later, and it just gets glossed over.
Yep.
Like he's done absolutely nothing. It's funny how, I do believe this, I think commentators, they play a massive role in making moments big. In saying that, they are very selective in how or who they can make bigger than what they are, and moments bigger than what they are, and how they can talk down others. So a bit like reality TV, where it can be chopped up and produced in a way that to make someone look bad or good. So they can do the same thing in footy.
So there you are, Wayne. You've just absolutely answered the question that I was asking you. If you were doing football, you don't get intimidated and you don't live your life vicariously through players that are playing. Young commentators get intimidated by saying, oh, he did a fantastic thing while a lesser player did exactly the same thing. They think that they will lift their stocks by recognising a top player doing something, and they live their lives through the stars that they watch, unlike the people who've been stars and don't have to worry about all that nonsense, don't have to do the puff pieces and the syrupy crap that most of the people who are younger go on with.
Well, what you're not allowed to do now, Sam, and the thing that, and you only have to, the woke world that we now live in, and that is, you might see a player not go quite hard enough at the footy, which once upon a time was called out, and called out quite strongly, and then not only would it be called out by the commentator, but it'd then be called out by your coach.
Yep.
And you'd get to training, and you'd then have to sit in front of all of your peers on the first training session, and you'd watch videotape of that incident, and the coach would say, you proverbially did that, and you would run out on the training track that day, and you'd feel absolutely terrible. Now, obviously, all of that has gone out of all of that has gone out of the commentary and also out of coaching. Now, some of that is good, although in saying that, some of it is also teaching mediocrity. It also goes against the very fabric of our game. I think if someone does something on the football field that is really doesn't show, and by the way, I've said this on air before, when you actually speak about someone not going quite hard enough or not doing the team thing, you put your hand up and you say, hey, we've all done it. We've all had a moment on the field. In actual fact, there's only one player that I've seen has never shit himself in the history since I've been watching the game. And I didn't see every contest because I was at the other end of the ground. But Glenn Archer's the only player that I ever watched that never, ever, ever took his eye off the ball and never shit himself to what I saw. I've seen just about every other courageous player that I've ever watched at some point, and some of the most courageous players that we've ever seen. Now, there'll be Collingwood supporters say, what about Gavin Brown? And you know what? And rightly so, but I never saw him play every week.
But there is a degree of self-preservation in anyone's body. People who just back into a pack or know they're going to get crunched, there is a innate thing in your body that
correct. Which is why I'm saying we've all done it. We've all done it. So when you call it out, if you're going to have a comment on someone about the way they go about the game or whatever, you can say it's a bit like accusing someone of going like we did a couple of weeks ago about these kids that are going and knocking stuff off from shops and everything else. And I said, well, I've done it. So
if you were running back with the flight of the ball, running back again, and there was someone running at you, you'd be foolhardy to just run straight into someone for the sake of a contest.
Well, you played 300 games, Sam. I knew that I was done at the Crows so if I was running back with the flight of the ball, there was a period in my career where you didn't. The only thing you had eyes for was the ball. Didn't matter what was coming in any direction, and that's how I knew I was done when I got to the Crows. Is because of the same situation, the ball, and you know what I decided? I still had my eyes on the ball, but I decided to go front and square rather than fly for the ball of what I did a year or so before. So that's when you know what? Time's done.
Oh, gee.
Time's done. We're talking about commentary, by the way, for all those who have got caught up in this. What I'm saying is I still think you have to talk about those incidents where players don't go. And in the current game, let's be honest, you're not going to get hurt. So if they've got to be called out in the right manner. I get you can't do it how you used to do it, but in the right manner. Just like if a player doesn't give the ball when he should give the ball and he's selfish, you should be called selfish. You should be able to say that was selfish. So that wasn't good enough. You should be able to say that.
Of the 10 players I could name that have just been out of football for 5 years and now have jobs as special comments people, they would be very adverse. They'd be very adverse to calling someone out for taking a short step.
Kane Corns does. He's one that does. Credit where credit's due.
Yes, I said I could name 10 players.
Okay, well, name 3 for me.
No, this is not. I'm not saying they would be very adverse to saying, someone put in some short steps or didn't go hard enough at the ball, because they would think that their credibility is not to do that. It is to speak positively about some other aspect, whereas someone like you or Dermot, who have been out of the game long enough and have some credibility and you've been there and done it at the highest level, you would say, you can even have women special comments people say it.
Unfortunately, in that landscape now, there are very few that call it as they see it. Yes. I think Dermy still does. I think Kane Corns most certainly does. I think when you look at those talkback shows, whether it be not after the I don't even know the name of the shows, but when you watch some of those shows, and David King, for instance, he'll call things out, and there are a few that will actually say that wasn't good enough, that's not good enough. The majority don't.
Yeah. But the idea is not to trash. So when I was on Triple M, I'd watched a few bad games in a row, and they used to do the votes, and they said, "Who are the best votes?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you the three worst people on the ground were." And then we did that for a season until the club started to kick up and said, "Hang on a minute, we don't want you to be running our players down." And we never used to give I never used to give the bad votes to someone who'd played 10 games. It's someone who didn't deliver who should have. And I'd say, well, the worst player on the ground, in my opinion, and that gained a bit of popularity because
it did because I was on Triple M after you were on Triple M, Sam, and they were that was still going while I was on.
Yes, and then they cut it out because they said it was
players used to get into the car. Yeah. Would get into the car, turn on the radio to find out they've had a stinker.
They see if they'd been sprung.
They've had they've had an absolute stinker. They turn on the radio and just pray that they didn't get the 3 votes for them.
And the parameter was that it wasn't a rookie or someone, it was a person who the club looked at to actually lift the side and didn't do it on the day, and there were famous and very good players that won that award, and that I know people used to say to me, they say, "Cross, I had a bad game. I was waiting to get the 3 votes for the worst on the ground." But we'd always give the qualify how you would to qualify for that.
Yep. No, I like how we start on a topic and we just go off on a tangent and end up somewhere where we shouldn't.
Well, so I don't know. Go on.
Have you ever? Well, you've had a.
So incidentally, we came in here, and you said, "Now look."
On the phone.
What?
I was on the phone when I walked in here.
No, I don't care what you're on the phone. So you got a book there, you got a pad, and you sat there and said, "Now, what'll we talk about?" I said, "Don't tell me what you'll talk about. You just bring something up." And you said, "Oh, well, now let me think." I said, "What? You've only started to think about what to speak since you walked in on the phone, have you?"
The whole week. Plus, I've taken photos of things in here.
Well, you've done well.
Because I tell you what, I'll show you.
I haven't even got to any of the topics I want to speak about.
Yeah, well, neither have I. But I tell you what, the things, and these were more to do with.
Go on.
It's an insult. Have you read all the? Have you read the Herald Sun? So when was this? This was 2 days ago.
Don't read the Herald Sun, only because I don't.
No, the reason I just love bringing this up with you.
Yeah, good on you.
So this is from a quote from 3AW. It's an insult. Indigenous community vote to ban welcome to country ceremonies. You've got all of that there. So all of this has been in the news.
I've got it here.
And I just thought, you know what? So look, as you can see there, I've taken photos of it all because I thought,
well, let's get on to that.
Sam will what for the next hour or
no? Well. No, not for the next hour, as long as you want to keep... that was one of my topics.
Yes.
So the Indigenous folk up in North Queensland have just said that the welcome to country is cringeworthy and it's embarrassing and it's not necessary.
So you would love Peter Dutton? Then he'd be one of your favourites?
So hang on. So... I have been saying that for 4 or 5 years and been getting the shit kicked out of me because it is bullshit. And we've said that. We've said how it's just suddenly just crept into the vernacular here, and it is a hoax. And if you say that, you're a racist.
Excuse me, you've been saying that for a long time. Yeah. I will say though, I flew back from Bangkok on Thai Airways.
Yeah, and you're welcome to the country.
No, there was no welcome to country on Thai Airways.
So it's the.
But I wouldn't have thought there would be.
Well, the wheel is starting to turn a little. So I've said this for years that we are the only country overseas that outside our embassies have the Australian flag up and the Aboriginal flag up. So now
you're talking about Dutton. Yeah?
Yeah, so I have said...
Not John Dutton from Yellowstone, this is Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, John's probably more famous.
So I've said... I've said...
Do you know who John Dutton is?
No. No, I don't.
It's Kevin Costner on Yellowstone, of which we're into the last few episodes of...
I've watched Yellowstone. Yes, is his name John Dutton in the series?
Yes, it is. And
I didn't know that.
Just, I won't give it away for those who haven't got up to the last season, but he's probably the better known Dutton, that's all.
right?
Let's get back onto the flags now.
Yeah, so we're the only country that I'm still to be told, no one's disputed it, that we fly 3 different flags outside our embassies. We have the Australian flag, the Aboriginal flag, and the Torres Strait Islanders flag. Why? We are one country. Why do we fly that? If that is not an indication that we're a divided nation to the world and the people that live in the country, I don't know what is.
What's the answer?
What?
What's the answer? Have you always liked the current original flag that we've always known?
The Union Jack with the Southern Cross under it?
You like that flag?
Well,
because that also represents the monarchy, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, there are a lot of people say that we should be a republic. So therefore, a lot of people are saying change that flag as well.
Right. Well, so Wayne, I've said this consistently.
Yes.
If you're going to fly one flag, I don't care what the flag is. Let's have another plebiscite about what flag it is. But to show that we're not divided, let's fly one flag above our buildings and that represents Australia at the Olympics or whatever. Let's just fly one flag. And it might have the Union Jack with the Aboriginal flag up in the right-hand corner, the red sun and the yellow and the black. It might have that. It could be a combination. Let's have one flag that not have 3 different flags.
Well, I'm glad you're happy for it to be represented.
So then you go to the extreme, the Fitzroy Council. If you go to the Fitzroy offices, they're not Yes.
What street is it? I know exactly where you're talking about.
Napier, I don't know where it is. It's out in the Fitzroy Council.
No, there's council on Fitzroy Street. What's that big new building that's been built on Fitzroy Street? I don't know.
They don't fly the Australian flag above their council building. They just fly the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders flags. They don't have the Australian flag flying above it, which is fantastic. It's a bit like Lydia Thorpe. Lydia Thorpe comes out and shouts at the King, and the Fitzroy Council doesn't fly the Australian flag above their building, and it's fantastic because it shows you that we will never ever vote for those people to help run the country. They exclude themselves automatically by being dickheads.
Not sure Lydia's the greatest example to... she's not the greatest example for anyone, is she?
She's a fantastic example of why you'd never put someone like that into the annals, into the halls of Parliament.
So why?
She is.
How has she been given? How has she got that position? And how?
Because she has a band of people that agree with her outlook, and they are the minority, and that's why. Those people and the Greens and the Teals and all those people will never be in Parliament because their extreme positions don't curry favour with. It's a bit like Trump.
Do you have do we have anything on here where people can sort of any artists? Do you think there'd be many artists that listen to this podcast? Artists, yeah. Because maybe we could get a few people to send in some examples of what the flag could look like.
Absolutely, they could. When all this was happening with the racism in AFL football, I said this to. I'll tell you, I said it to. He happened to be the He happened to be the Patrick Dangerfield is the head of the Australian
he's the president
players.
of the AFL Players Association.
A decade ago, maybe not a decade ago. Do you remember at the start of a season about 6 years ago, the players all stood around in a circle and held hands and bowed their head before a game in honour of Black Lives Matter? They did. They all stood around. This is after the George Floyd riots. And I said to Patrick, can you believe that we are bowing our head in acknowledgement of Black Lives Matter, which is a domestic terror organisation? They are a fraud, Black Lives Matter. I think the Fitzroy Council, or there's a street up in called that they've painted it in Black Lives Matter. You walk down the footpath and the Black Lives Matter flag is up there. So I said to Patrick Dangerfield, instead of going on saying there's racism in sport and we push back on it and all that, doesn't every jumper have up in the square have a sign in yellow and black and red, a sign that says, say no to racism. Just up, every jumper has it up on the patch up on their jumper. Why instead of standing around holding hands and pulling your dick and projecting yourself and thinking you're virtuous?
Now I didn't hear that. Now that makes sense.
Well, I sent him. I drew a picture of
that would be a great thing to be on every jumper.
Wayne, I got a Geelong jumper, which I have, and it might still be out there, and I got someone to draw a motif, and I stuck it on the thing, and I took a photograph of it, and I sent it to him. I said, why don't you ask the AFL on every AFL jumper to say no to racism?
Love it, Sam.
Up there on
I love
in the colours.
I love that.
Because
racism isn't just about Indigenous Australia. Racism
exactly.
Is exactly. You know what? There you go. You've made sense.
But I'd said that. If you could find out the year
no
that
racism,
the players
that
stood round the circle
that.
and held hands for Black Lives Matter, that's the day I had a conversation with Patrick Dangerfield.
I love that idea.
And
on every jumper, say no to racism.
Yes,
absolutely.
Just little square.
Love it, Sam.
Yeah, so that's right. So.
Yep.
So Peter Dutton and the Welcome to Country, we won't go on with it. It's going to gather more strength as Australia Day comes up. I don't care what day as we celebrate Australia Day. If we could just find a common day, I think Greg Evans said, why don't we make it a long weekend, not necessarily on the 26th, if that's what it is, but celebrate Australia Day for Australians.
You know what I think a lot of people do, Sam, and I'm hearing this loud and clear with you, is that People get confused by some of the things that you say and then don't then hear the absolute crux of what you're trying to say. And the last two things that you've just said are absolute fantastic ideas.
Yeah, because they're logical. But I'd say I don't mind being called a racist. I've painted my face black, and people said, "Oh, you're a racist because you pretended you were Nicky Winmar and all that sort of stuff." But to say that we should fly only one flag above our buildings, and we should not have welcome to country. How can you have the Aboriginal community, many of them, coming out and saying it's embarrassing, it's not necessary, we don't agree with it, and yet when white people say it, like me, you say it's gathered momentum for no reason. It's just a hoax and it's a money spinner.
I love your passion, but like I said, you've made some very, very good points, and the jumper idea is the best idea that I've heard for a very long time.
Well, I can show you. I might still have the jumper with the thing stuck on the front of it. And if you ever have a conversation with Patrick Dangerfield, I texted him and sent him a photo of it, and I said, "Why don't you
say no to race?" It's perfect.
Yes,
it's succinct. It's perfect.
It
covers everyone, all peoples. It's absolutely brilliant. No different to Quit in regards to smoking, who sit on jumpers, and then a lot of people don't smoke because of that. They've just taken up vaping now instead of smoking.
This is one of my subjects. I've got here, look, vaping cigarettes. Tell me this, someone said vaping is illegal.
It is in some places, yeah. I was in Singapore recently.
Now, hang on, in Australia, why is vaping...
It's illegal. You're not allowed vape in Singapore.
Don't worry about Singapore. You're not allowed to chew gum in Singapore.
Well, you are. You're just not allowed to spit it on the ground.
Oh, no, well, thank you, Wayne. That's correct. Wayne, is vaping legal?
In Australia?
Yep.
Oh, as far as I know, it is.
Well,
legal or illegal, did you say?
Legal.
No, well, it's legal here, isn't it?
Well, someone said it wasn't.
Someone
said you can only buy vapes from chemists. You have to get a prescription.
If it's not legal here, then a lot of people are breaking the law.
Someone said it's illegal. You can only get vaping, fucking whatever they're called, vapes from chemists. You have to have a prescription for them. And I said, that's bullshit.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are doing it. And anyway, we got onto this
people
by
under
saying
18 can't vape, but people under 18 can't buy cigarettes.
No, correct.
If someone over 18 can buy a packet of cigarettes, why can't someone buy a vape? They can at the pharmacy, but you can't go into Coles or they don't have them in the drawer, the locked drawer.
I'm making comment on this because I said the quit, the quit sign that we used to see. I think Fitzroy had quit. I think North Melbourne might have had quit as a sponsor, which was a government thing back in the time. But the vaping thing, illegal. It is illegal in Singapore, and you're saying it's illegal here as well.
I'm saying someone told me you can't.
Anyway, for anyone out there that is vaping, it smells. The only advantage about vaping is it smells better than smoking,
and that's
just as dangerous as one another. It just smells better,
and that's why the government is down on it, because it attracts people to do it, because it doesn't have that aroma and doesn't have that smell, but it's still bad for you. So they banned it, and I said that you can't ban it. If you can buy cigarettes if you're over 18, why can't you buy a vape machine? Next, they'll be telling you can't drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi because it's got sugar.
Well,
that
brings up a whole new topic.
Yeah,
I was talking about over 18 and vaping and smoking and all those things. By the way, which you shouldn't do any of. We're talking about the lockdowns that we recently had, and there's been a lot of topics, Sam. A lot of people talking about what went on then, and we're the most lockdown city in the world, and et cetera, et cetera. But you're allowed to go to Dan Murphy's and mingle with another 200 people in there, buying wine and vodka and everything else that they wanted to get, but you weren't allowed to play golf.
You weren't allowed to play tennis. The hypocrisy of the Andrews government. And the Andrews government, I see Jim from Jim's Mowing, Jim Penman.
All their names aren't Jim. It's just a French. I love the look he gives me, Sue. Hey, it gives me this. He goes Jim from Jim's Mowing. His name might have been Paul from Jim's Mowing.
His name's Jim Penman.
Oh.
I've interviewed him. We've interviewed him here.
Oh, so his name is Jim.
His name's Jim Penman.
Right.
And he's called Jim's Mowing, and he has franchises for 50 different things. Jim's Antennas.
Sorry, this is Jim. This is the founder. Yeah.
Having a rest. I'm coming back.